No, no.
Yeah.
Oh my
you already
God.
know what it. Thank you.
Holy.
That's a beautiful item you just gave me. Appreciate that.
Wow.
Just like I like it. Thank you.
For weeks, the internet had been waiting. Rumors, reactions, theories. Khloé Kardashian had already spoken her truth. Kourtney had kept her distance. And Scott Disick, and the man at the center of it all, stayed silent. Until now. It happened quietly, almost by accident. During a casual interview on a podcast, Scott was asked the question, the one that's been hanging over him for months. What's really going on between you and Khloé? At first, he laughed, classic Scott, brushing it off with that trademark sarcasm. But then his tone changed. He leaned forward, sighed, and said, look, people love to make stories out of nothing. Me and Khloé, we've been close for 15 years. That's family, that's love, but not that kind of love. And just like that, the internet exploded. It wasn't a polished PR statement. It wasn't filmed for Hulu or teased on social media. It was real. Scott sounded tired, not defensive, just done.
What's happening?
I would probably sell this house.
Oh my God.
And I'd sell the other houses that I'm building, and then I would do the same thing there. And just, you know, do buildings and apartments and stuff like that.
I don't think any of this is thoroughly thought out. This is like an impulse purchase, but an impulse move, and that's never good.
I get why people talk, he admitted. I'm always around the family, I joke a lot, and Khloé's one of the few people who still puts up with me. But that's it. That's the truth. No filters, no shade, no deflection, just raw clarity. For a man who spent years using humor to dodge emotional questions, this was different, and he wasn't joking, he was confessing. Scott went on to explain that his connection with Khloé came from survival, not romance. They've seen each other's worst days, they've covered for each other, they've protected the family when things got ugly. She's been there when I didn't even deserve it, he said. I owe her a lot, but not that. People can twist it how they want, but that's my sister, period.
Your hair looks nice. Is it amber?
Is my hair amber?
Yeah, it looks beautiful.
It's called cowboy
I got a
copper.
smoothie if you don't mind.
It was the most definitive statement he'd ever made on the subject, and for the first time, it didn't sound like damage control. It sounded like closure. As soon as the clip dropped, social media lit up. TikTok users flooded the comments. Scott finally said it. I actually believe him this time. He looks emotional, like he's tired of being the joke.
If you had the opportunity to meet the perfect girl, what does that look like on paper?
Yeah,
Like,
how tall are you?
This guy. What's happening?
For once, the reaction wasn't cynical, it was empathetic, because beneath the charm, you could see it, the guilt, the regret, the awareness that maybe his closeness with Khloé had caused more confusion than he ever intended. This wasn't Scott the showman. This was Scott the human being, honest, reflective, and maybe a little broken. Because while the internet was still processing his words, there was someone who had already heard them and didn't need the headlines to understand their weight. The woman who once knew Scott better than anyone else. The one who could read every pause, every breath, every word left unsaid, and her reaction, quiet, controlled, but unmistakably powerful. To understand why Scott Disick's confession hit so hard, you have to rewind.
Regardless, Scott is always going to be family to me, and I don't want to lose any of my family. I want us all to be together and to stick together.
Back to where this entire story began, because this wasn't an overnight rumor. It was years in the making, a story born from friendship, loyalty, and a world that doesn't understand boundaries that aren't romantic. From the first seasons of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, Khloé Kardashian and Scott Disick were a duo unlike any other. They bickered like siblings, roasted each other constantly, and somehow managed to steal every scene they shared. You're such a pain in my ass, Khloé would snap. That's because you secretly love me, Scott would grin. It was chemistry, but not that kind of chemistry. It was the comfortable chaos that happens when two people have survived too much together to ever take each other seriously. Still, the internet saw it differently. They always do. As the years went on, Scott became less Kourtney's boyfriend and more part of the Kardashian family.
It's not easy being us.
Not easy
But you
living
look
here.
good. But
So
you
you
always do. And you haven't been going anywhere, which I like. Me neither.
He was at dinners, brand events, birthdays, always there, always close. And because Kourtney had moved on with Travis Barker, fans needed a new narrative to obsess over. Enter Khloé and Scott. The jokes, the laughter, the late night FaceTimes shown in clips, everything that had once looked innocent now became proof.
But I haven't talked to like Kourt or the kids or anything like that yet.
Yeah, would Mason be okay with it?
Well, I don't know.
TikTok edits started flooding the internet. Slow motion montages of their funniest moments overlaid with dramatic captions like, "You can't fake that kind of connection." People began asking the same question over and over again. Are we sure they're just friends? Even as Khloé denied it, the speculation wouldn't stop. The paparazzi caught them having lunch. Fans noticed Scott calling her "my boo" in an Instagram comment. The tabloids ran headlines like, "Scott and Khloé's secret bond, is there more to the story?" And the more they laughed it off, the worse it got, because in the Kardashian world, silence isn't privacy, it's marketing. Every unspoken word turns into a headline. Every friendly gesture becomes a clue. "You can't even breathe next to a man in this family without being accused of dating him," Khloé once said, half joking, half exhausted. The real shift came when Kourtney Kardashian married Travis Barker. Her relationship was solid, serious, public, and suddenly, Scott was no longer the ex, he was the outsider. Fans began to wonder if his closeness to Khloé was filling that emotional void. They pointed to interviews where Scott praised her loyalty, called her "the only one who still gets me," and even joked that he and Khloé should have been the ones to end up together. That line, meant as humor, became the headline that fueled everything. From that moment, the story stopped being funny and it became tabloid prophecy. So when Khloé finally spoke out, shutting it down once and for all, and Scott later followed with his confession, it wasn't just clarification, it was closure for years of misinterpretation. Because what started as friendship became a fascination. What began as family turned into a fantasy the internet refused to let go of. And in the middle of it all were two people, Khloé and Scott, who never crossed the line but kept getting dragged for standing too close to it. Now that Scott had finally said the words out loud, "She's family, not romance," there was no going back. But one question remained. Would Khloé stay quiet this time, or would she respond to his confession in her own way? When Scott Disick finally decided to speak, it wasn't planned, rehearsed, or publicist approved. It just happened, a candid moment that peeled back the layers of a man the world has spent over a decade laughing at, judging, or misunderstanding. For once, Scott wasn't being the Lord. He wasn't performing, he was just being human. Sitting in a podcast studio with the cameras rolling, Scott's voice was calm but tired, the kind of tone that only comes from someone who's finally ready to let go of a story that's spun out of control. "I'll always love Khloé," he said plainly. "She's one of my best friends in the world. But it's never been romantic. Not for a second." I think people can't wrap their heads around that. A man and a woman actually being that close without there being something more. It wasn't defensive, it wasn't scripted, it was truth. Scott smiled slightly, almost sadly, and continued, "She's been there through everything. Losing my parents, my darkest days, all of it. I trust her more than most people I've ever known. But that's love as family, not as anything else." That line, "love as family," became the quote that every news outlet used. It was soft but final. It closed a door the internet kept forcing open. For once, Scott didn't blame the tabloids, he didn't blame editing or fans taking things out of context. He blamed himself in the way he's always used humor to mask vulnerability. "I probably didn't help," he admitted with a small laugh. "I joke a lot. I've said stupid things over the years, like that Khloé should have married me instead. I thought I was being funny, but I get it now. People don't see sarcasm, they see a headline." For Scott, that realization stung. Because behind the jokes was a man who's been living with public guilt for years. Not for cheating scandals or bad behavior, but for being forever stuck between love and friendship, between family and outsider. He paused before adding quietly, "I think maybe I leaned on her too much sometimes. She was the one who never gave up on me, and I probably took that for granted." That's when his voice cracked just slightly, a rare moment of vulnerability for someone who spent half his life trying to be bulletproof. When asked whether Kourtney Kardashian might have ever felt uncomfortable with how close he and Khloé were, Scott didn't dodge it. He answered with something that sounded almost like respect. "Kourtney knows who I am. She's known me better than anyone for 20 years. If she ever thought there was something weird, she'd say it. Trust me," he smiled faintly. "But she's smart enough to know it's never been that. She knows I love her family, even when I screw up, especially when I screw up. It wasn't an apology, it was an acknowledgement, one that felt both humble and honest." The man who once built a reputation on luxury, sarcasm, and chaos now sounded like someone who'd finally learned to accept where he stands. "I've done a lot of growing up," he said near the end of the interview. And part of that is realizing that some relationships don't need to change. They just need to be respected. That's what Khloé's always been to me. Respect. And that was it. No cliffhanger, no drama, just a quiet truth that felt overdue. Scott Disick had finally said what everyone else had been too afraid to. That sometimes the closest love stories aren't romantic, they're human. But while his honesty earned him respect from fans, it also reopened old emotions for one person, Khloé Kardashian herself. Because while Scott was finding closure, Khloé was being forced to relive a story she'd already buried. When Scott Disick's confession hit the internet, the world immediately turned its attention to Khloé Kardashian. Because if there's one thing people love more than a rumor, it's a reaction. And when Khloé finally spoke, she didn't give them drama, she gave them truth. At first, Khloé stayed silent, no tweets, no Instagram stories, just her usual routine, posting her workouts, her motivational quotes, her soft smiles. But anyone who's followed Khloé long enough knows when she posts about energy and boundaries, she's not talking about fitness. She's talking about something deeper. And sure enough, a few days later, during a behind-the-scenes interview for the Kardashians, she broke her silence. Khloé sat in front of the camera, calm and poised, her tone steady, but her eyes said more than her words. When asked about Scott's comments, she paused for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "I appreciated what he said," she began. "It's nice that people finally hear it from him. Because for years, I've been saying the same thing, and no one believed me." She smiled softly, the kind of smile that hides fatigue more than amusement. "I love Scott. I always will. But people have turned that love into something it's not, and it's exhausting. You can't explain loyalty to people who don't understand it." That was the line that made headlines, because Khloé didn't deny anything. She defined it. Her voice didn't waver, but her words carried years of frustration, not toward Scott, but toward the way their friendship had been twisted. "Scott's been through a lot," she continued, "and I've always wanted him to feel like he's still part of this family. But at some point, people started romanticizing that. Like caring about someone automatically means you're sleeping with them. It's sad, honestly. The truth was clear. Khloé wasn't angry. She was tired. Tired of defending a friendship, tired of being misunderstood, tired of every act of kindness being turned into a scandal. "I'm not mad at Scott for speaking," she said. "I just wish people would finally let it rest." Later in the same episode, Khloé was filmed talking privately with her best friend, Malika. And that's when she really opened up. "I think people forget that I've been through enough public drama for a lifetime," she said. "I'm not doing it again. Not with Scott, not with anyone." Malika nodded and Khloé continued, her tone sharper now. "I love him like a brother, but I've learned that love doesn't mean access. Everyone has to protect their peace, even me." That line was small, but it said everything, because for years, Khloé's been the one protecting everyone else, her family, her exes, her friends. Now she was finally protecting herself. When the episode aired, fans flooded social media with messages of support. "This is the healthiest version of Khloé we've ever seen. You can tell she's over it, and I respect that." But others noticed something else, and that even as she closed the chapter, there was still softness in her tone when she talked about Scott. No anger, no resentment, just care. Because no matter how complicated their story got, one truth remained. Khloé Kardashian never stopped being loyal, even when loyalty cost her peace. And while the internet praised her maturity, there was one person whose silence carried more weight than anyone else's, Kourtney Kardashian. Because now, for the first time, her name was back in the middle of a story she thought she'd outgrown. When Kourtney Kardashian heard about Scott Disick's confession, and then Khloé's response, she didn't say a word. No post, no statement, no acknowledgement, just silence. And for Kourtney, silence means everything. Because if Khloé's calm was about peace, Kourtney's quiet was about control. And when it comes to protecting her space, her energy, and her new life with Travis Barker, Kourtney doesn't play games anymore. Sources close to the family say Kourtney was aware of the interview before it went public. She didn't react with anger, just deep irritation that once again, her name was being dragged into a story she never signed up for. Kourtney feels like this is just another reminder of why she needed to move on, one insider revealed. She's happy. She's focused on her marriage, her kids, and her peace. but every time Scott's in the news, it somehow circles back to her. Behind closed doors, she reportedly kept her distance, both from Scott and from the conversation itself. No phone calls, no texts, just space, because when Kourtney is done with something, she's done. Kourtney's husband, Travis Barker, has been a big part of that boundary. He's seen how public drama used to consume her, how she'd internalize every rumor and every headline. This time, he wasn't letting that happen. Travis told her to let it go, another source shared. He reminded her that she doesn't owe the public a reaction, especially about something that isn't even her story anymore. And that's exactly what she did. She went quiet, focused on her life, her home, and her baby. While the world debated what Scott and Khloé meant to each other, Kourtney stayed anchored in what she had, a life finally free from that chaos. Still, people close to the Kardashians say that when the clip of Scott's confession hit her feed, Kourtney didn't ignore it completely. She reportedly rolled her eyes, muttered, "Classic Scott," and moved on. It wasn't anger, it was fatigue. Because for Kourtney, Scott's emotional revelations are nothing new. She's lived them, forgiven them, and outgrown them, long before the cameras ever caught up. Kourtney has no hate for him, said one insider, but she's also not entertaining the past. She's in a different place now, emotionally and spiritually. In the Kardashian world, silence can be louder than a statement. And Kourtney's silence said it all. She's not jealous, she's not upset, she's indifferent, and that indifference, it's the strongest statement she could possibly make. While fans analyzed Scott's tone and Khloé's emotions, Kourtney simply stayed out of the narrative. No shade, no subtweets, no cryptic posts, just stillness. Because when you finally built a life that feels safe, peaceful, and grounded, you don't let old chaos knock on your door again. One source close to the family summed it up perfectly. Kourtney's been through too much with Scott to ever be surprised by him. She's past the point of reaction. She's happy where she is, and that's what matters. And that's the real story. While the world obsessed over Scott's confession, the woman who used to be at the center of it had already turned the page. Khloé Kardashian wasn't part of the drama anymore. She was proof that you can leave it behind and still win. But while Kourtney stayed silent publicly, the rest of the Kardashian circle wasn't as calm behind the scenes. Because inside that family, every rumor is a ripple, and every ripple eventually reaches Kris Jenner. While the world was dissecting Scott Disick's confession, Khloé's calm response, and Kourtney's icy silence, the real tension was unfolding away from cameras, inside the Kardashian family itself. Because if there's one thing this family knows how to do, it's manage chaos while pretending everything's fine. Behind the Instagram smiles and the filtered perfection, everyone had something to say, just not out loud. When Kris Jenner heard the clip of Scott's confession, she reportedly sighed, looked at her phone, and said the words that every member of the family has heard before. "We need to get ahead of this, because to Kris, everything, even family drama, is about timing, tone, and control." She knows Scott's words were harmless in intent but damaging in optics. She likes Scott, said one insider, but she also knows he's unpredictable. When he speaks, it's honest, and honesty can be dangerous in this family. Kris immediately began calling her daughters, coordinating with PR teams, and ensuring that Khloé's quote, "You can't explain loyalty to people who don't understand it," was the one that dominated headlines. She didn't want this to become Scott's story. It had to stay Khloé's, or better yet, the family's. Kris doesn't silence drama, a producer once joked. She repackages it. So what do you think, Hush Hush fam? Did Scott's confession finally bring closure, or did it open a new chapter in this never-ending Kardashian saga? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment, because we're just getting started uncovering the truths behind Hollywood's biggest headlines. Until next time, stay curious, stay tuned, and I'll see you on the next one.